All right. So I know I've been doing a lot of things recently, or pretty much all of national topics and how some of them impact Indiana. It's hard. I grew up in DC, so I'm used to national topics being local news. So I got my electric bill though. So I'm going to do this one about electric costs in Indiana, specifically Indiana. I got my electric bill the other day. I have not had a bill this high since I moved back to Indiana, or ever in Indiana. 'Cause I moved back to Indiana from, I had a job overseas. We moved back home in 2019. And when I bought my new house, I put a new HVAC system in because, those are more efficient, lower your costs. And I put new windows in my house. And we have about, I think, close to 30 some windows. And when you put new windows in, we got the triple pane. It's got the UV protectors. Blocks UV light. It holds in the temperature of your house better. Things that should lower your costs, right? So I got my bill, and I'll put it up and show everybody. It was like $228, I believe. I'm not looking at it this moment. Never have I had a bill that high. So I did some digging, and I know we've had the utility companies here in Indiana, and so I live in Hancock County. In the part I live in, we have AES, and I know other parts of Hancock County have Duke, I believe. So just alone, okay, I know AES recently. This is like the second time in the last 4 years they've asked for a 13.5% rate hike into our utility electric bill. Now remember, inflation right now is 2.7, so this is well above inflation. And I know Duke asked and had passed 11% increase last year, so it was in two steps. This year in 27 February, it was 8%, and the next year it's going to be up 3%. Again, both of those are above inflation, 2.7% year over year CPI. And I'll put those up too. I'll screenshot those and put those up. And like I said, I'll put my bill up. It's got me thinking. I'll talk about this a little later on in this, but AES and Duke are publicly traded companies. They pay a dividend to their shareholders every year. So when we pay our electric bills, they're taking some of the money we've paid after and paying it to their investors, which is great. If you own their stock, great. And companies do that. It's a normal thing, especially when you're retired and you have passive income. That's a great way to get more money, right? So before I get into that and the amount they're spending, who controls Indiana prices in Indiana? And that would be, I have my notes, utility companies control it, but also the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, so IURC, decides whether to approve the rate increases they ask for. The Office of Utility Consumer Protection represents us on these decisions. But then I was wondering, who appoints these regulators? And if you know, Indiana has had a Republican governor since 2005, I believe. So all IURC commissioners and the OUCC leaders are appointed by the governor of Indiana. So we've had, again, 20 plus years of supermajority Republican rule. Republican Party governors have been appointing these people who are authorizing our rate increases. The Indiana legislature, also controlled by Republican supermajority, sets the laws that shape utility regulation. So you can't blame Democrats for these increases. You have to blame the Republicans because they are the ones who are in control. Like it or not, they are the ones who are in control of supermajority. All right. So again, the bottom line to all this is Republicans. I type my notes out. It's better for me than if I just start freewheeling everything. Republicans currently control all key positions that oversee energy rates in Indiana. This influences the state's approach to rate hikes, infrastructure investments, and regulatory philosophy, typically more pro-business, less aggressive in regulation. So then this gets to the part, I have my notes here too. So as I said, and I'll put these up too. Duke and AES pay a dividend. Duke Energy pays $3.21 billion a year, or $4.26 per share you own. And they usually pay that quarterly, so divide that by 4. So Duke Energy and they're the largest utility in the country. $3.21 billion they give to shareholders. AES Corp pays $490 million a year. And they pay 70 cents a share. I think that's per share every quarter. Again, I'll put this stuff up. So why can't we have them cut some of that dividend to do the investments they're supposed to do? Because you're supposed to take your profits and invest into your company to make more profits. But they're having us pay for these improvements, but they're not taking their profits to do this. So it's because one investor. Look, I'm capitalist. I'm a capitalist. I believe we all are. So I get it. I get some of these things. Like, investors expect expectations of stability. I won't want to give AES or Duke my money because I want my constant dividend. I get that. I understand that. But companies can and have in the past cut dividends for things. So the regulated revenue model, and this is a little complicated, so I'll read it what it is. Utilities operate under regulatory oversight like the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. Their revenue and allowed returns, like return on equity, are set to cover operating costs, investments, and provide reasonable profit. This regulated structure usually ensures steady cash flow, making it easier to maintain dividends. So these allow them to maintain their dividend instead of forcing them to take some of that money and use it for capital investment. So now this is the part where frustrates me the most, I guess, and it should frustrate all of us. So they use this capital investment funding. So when they raise our rates, rate increases help utilities fund infrastructure upgrades and operating expenses. Cutting dividends would not generate cash. They pay dividends from profits, but infrastructure investments require actual capital, usually raised through borrowing to retain earnings. Once a project is done, they don't cut the rates back, though. So they can take the money out of their profits, invest in this, and do the project. They don't, fine. We pay for it, right? We're using it. But once they finish the project, they don't cut the rate back. So they keep that extra rate increase, even though the project is done and finished. I mean, I could see them saying, okay, the project's done. We're going to cut back that rate increase to maybe 2% because that's all we need to do the continuing operating maintenance of this project. No, they keep the full rate. And then people do worry that if you cut your dividend, that sends to the market, we're weak. Again, that's the wrong theory because they're cutting it for a reason. They're not cutting it because they're insolvent or they're trying to preserve cash. You'd be cutting your dividend a little bit to perform your business duties. So since 2020, in Indiana, rates have gone up 16.1%, electric rates. We have the average inflation rate between 2020 and 2024 was around 3 to 4%. So let's say 4%. So that's 4 times more of the average rate of inflation, what we've seen energy rates go up to. Okay. So when you compound that increase on electricity with other rising costs like groceries, housing, insurance, that puts more of a strain on us in the middle class. And I'm not making this one to be, oh, woe's me, my electric bill was a little high. I'm fortunate enough that it doesn't affect my family. But there's families out there who would get an electric bill like this and be like, they would have legitimate worries and concerns. How are we going to pay this and still do other things? I grew up like that, okay? And I've said in the past, I have no shame in it. My family at one point when I was growing up, we lived in government housing. My parents, we grew up poor. I mean, we put duct tape in. I remember my dad had to duct tape my shoes because I had a hole in my shoes. So I'm sympathetic to people who are in a position where these type of increases impact their lives more than others. And it's a shame that this is how we have to live, where the regulatory commission doesn't fight back harder for us to help us. I get companies have to raise their rates to do some of these products. I get that. I understand that. I understand how markets work. But to not ask these companies to use more of their profits like you're supposed to improve your product and have us pay it, and we're also paying the dividend for these companies to pay out to their shareholders, I think is a little insulting. What else on my notes? So, these rates disproportionately impact lower income households where utilities are a larger share of the monthly expenses, and yet utilities are still paying out billions of dividends, requesting new rate hikes, avoiding cost cutting and corporate level while customers bear the burden. Remember, I said that we bear it. they don't. Their shareholders don't have to bear any of this either because they're going to get their dividend, and they're going to get their, and it. Funny enough, when you do dividends, you can set it up so that that dividend goes and buys more stock. So you can say, I want you to buy more stock with that dividend instead. So then you're buying more stock, which makes the stock price go up. So when you get the new dividend, it gets a little higher because it's based on the price of the stock, the percent. So if the price is 10 and say your dividend is 6, now the price is 20, your dividend is still 6. So you're getting a bigger chunk now. Even though it's 6%, 6% of a higher number is going to be more for you. So I just want you, again, elections have consequences, and, I see in the state house a lot, they'll blame the Democrats for things, but the Democrats don't have any control in the state house, in the governorship, to do the things they say the Democrats are doing. It's been supermajority Republican control for 20 plus years. So they need to own the problems that we have and fix. If they're not going to fix it, get out, let somebody else run, let somebody else get in there and try to fix it. But they're not doing that. They keep running on the same things that Democrats are going to ruin your life. They can't. They're not in charge. They're not in charge of anything. And just look at your electric bill, for instance. The commission is appointed by the governor, who's been a Republican since at least 2005, and the rules and regulations are set by the legislature, which again has been Republican for 20 plus years. So we can be frustrated with the electric companies, but when it comes down to it, it's the people in control of the government who play a big part in this, and it's the Republicans. And we need to start realizing we're going to get the government we deserve by the way we vote. And I can keep, again, this is one of those topics where I'm more comfortable in. I can talk forever, and I've got to find a way to stop making these go so long. When my kids ask me a question when it comes to science or business, I will give them the deepest detail I can give them, and my kids sit there blank stared. I'm sure some of you are too. So I'm going to end this now. Remember, elections have consequences, and don't let the politicians fool you by saying, oh, the Democrats, when the Democrats have not been in control in Indiana for 20 plus years. Remember, you have a voice, use it.